Hi and welcome to Stella's Mezza. On today's episode, I'll be showing you how to make a guava hearts cheesecake. Now, this is a simple recipe that you can make, especially now that Valentine's Day is around the corner. Now, to begin, you will need 3 packages of room temperature cream cheese and unsalted butter, some guava paste. Now, this you can find in the international aisle next to the Hispanic foods. Okay, it's just concentrated guava pulp that's been made into a block there, and it's very delicious. Now over here I have some eggs, some fresh lemon juice, and pure vanilla extract. You will also need some sour cream. And I'm using vanilla wafers today for my base. Now you can use graham cracker crust. I'm used to using that, but I wanted something for change. So I've just put them in a Ziploc bag, and I'm going to use that rolling pin to crush them. You could also use your food processor to crush these, but I did not want to wash a whole food processor just for some crumbs. Now over there I have some sugar and some melted butter that we're going to put into the crust. Now don't forget, we'll also need some all-purpose flour and some cornstarch, also called corn flour in parts of the world, and granulated sugar. Now as far as equipment you'll need, I am using a spatula. You'll need a springform pan. That's a 10-inch one that I have sprayed at the bottom and lined with some parchment paper. That just makes it easier for me to release the finished cheesecake from the pan. And I also have there a plastic squeeze bottle or condiment bottle. These are easy. They're very cheap. You can find them even at dollar stores. And we'll be using that to dot our cake with the guava. Now over there I have a baking pan that I've filled with water. Now today I'm not going to use a bain-marie or water bath method to cook this. I'm just going to use that to steam the oven. Now over there I have a baking sheet where we're going to sit our springform pan as we bake our cheesecake. Now to begin with, here I have our cookies, our vanilla wafer cookies. I put them in the Ziploc bag. Make sure you squeeze out the air so that the bag does not pop as you do this. And you just want to crush them till it has a breadcrumb-like texture, just into fine crumbs. Okay? And once you're finished, it should look like this. See that? Just make sure there are no big chunks in there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but no big chunks. Now you add the sugar into that mixture. Make sure you mix everything well. That way the sweetness goes through the whole crust. And then after we do that, we're going to add our melted butter to that mixture. Just make sure all the sugar is incorporated into that crumb. And you're going to add your melted butter. Now I'm using unsalted butter for this. Okay. And you're going to give it a good mix. Now once it's well mixed, the texture should resemble wet sand, and if you squeeze it in the palm of your hands, it should hold together without falling apart too easily. See that? That's what it needs to look like. So now we're going to put this at the bottom of our springform pan. Now this pan releases at the bottom. There's a latch on the side, and you can push the base through the sides. So that's how we release our finished cheesecake. But what I'm doing now is I'm just evenly spreading those crumbs at the bottom of that springform pan, and you can use your hands, just make sure they're clean. And I'm just going to pat that at the bottom to make sure it's nice and even, and that I use the back of a measuring cup just to make it compact after I finish pressing it down with my hand. And you want to make sure it comes up the sides of that pan just a little bit. Okay, but first just press the bottom, make sure it does not come apart, and then I'm using that the bottom of that measuring cup just to make sure it's nice and even and compact, and I'm also pushing it up the sides as I do this. You see that? Okay, just starting as you do this, that way it's all even all around. Now you see the sides that have the crumbs that have come up the sides of that pan. What I'm going to do is I am going to kind of pinch them down to make them into a nice even layer. That way when I cut into my finished cheesecake, it does not fall apart. Okay, and I'm about to show you how to do that. I'm just using my thumb and my index finger to pinch it up the side to make sure it's nice and even. Like right there. See that? And turn the pan around as you do this. That way you get all around it. See that? Pinching motion. Okay, now once that is done, we're going to start working on the filling for our cheesecake. Now remember to leave your cheesecake at room temperature. And another thing, for all the measurements, ingredients, and step-by-step instructions for this recipe, including pictures, visit my blog. It's www.stellasmeza.blogspot.com. All right, now in that bowl, that large mixing bowl, we have our cream cheese, our sugar, and our softened butter. And we're just going to cream that together till it's nice and soft and all the sugar has been incorporated in there. All the sugar is dissolved in that mixture. And I'm using an electric mixer just to make it easier. See that? It's nice and fluffy. All right. Now in that pan, I have the guava. I cut it in half. Okay, half of that guava paste that I showed you earlier, and I've just cubed it to make it easier for it to melt. And in that pan, I'm adding half a cup of water, and I'm going to put that on the stove. I have it set on medium heat, and just let it melt down. So that way it turns into liquid, but it has to be a thick consistency. It should resemble ketchup, the thickness of like ketchup. And that's what we're going to use to put the hearts up over our cheesecake filling. Now we're going to start adding the eggs into that butter, sugar, and cream cheese mixture. Just make sure you incorporate it very well. That way there's no yellow from the egg showing at all. Okay, and occasionally you want to stop to scrape the sides of your mixing bowl to make sure that everything gets well incorporated. And I have that on medium speed. I have my electric mixer on medium speed. And make sure you turn the bowl that way everything gets mixed all throughout the bowl. See that? I'm just scraping the sides, make sure everything's well mixed in there. And just look at how creamy that is. That looks so good. Okay, now we're going to add the next thing into the bowl, and that's that sour cream. That just cuts through the sweetness of the cream cheese and sugar mixture because it has a little bit of tanginess, but it makes it nice and fluffy as well. And I always make sure I get everything. I hate wasting food. Okay, we're going to give that another mix. Make sure there's no whites left. You don't see that cream cheese, the sour cream at all. And then we're going to move on to the next ingredient. I want to make sure everything's nicely mixed and it's nice and fluffy. Look at that. Now, the finished cream cheese has, it's weird. It's fluffy, but it's dense at the same time. Okay? It does not fall apart on you. All right. In there, I'm going to add that all-purpose flour and that cornstarch. That cornstarch makes it, gives it that density. These two ingredients give it that density you're looking for without making it too heavy. All right, and also don't forget to scrape the sides of the bowl just to make sure all that the dry ingredients, that flour and cornstarch, are well mixed in there. Again, in some parts of the world, they call cornstarch corn flour. Okay, I'm going to scrape that and make sure everything's joining the party. And you're going to keep mixing until everything's well combined. All right, now I'm adding in there that lemon juice. It's pure lemon juice. And then we're going to add in next our vanilla extract. And make sure you use a pure vanilla extract because that really enhances the flavor of whatever it is you're cooking. Try to avoid the imitation stuff. It does a job to fill that space, but it just never tastes the same. So always use a pure vanilla extract when you're baking or cooking. Okay. Going to add around a teaspoonful of it in there and give it another mix. See how thick that's getting? It's just creamy. All right, now we're going to finish that off. Scrape the sides one more time. Make sure everything's in there, happy together in that bowl. And look at that. We're done. Look at how creamy that is. That's how easy it is to make that filling. It's thick, but it's still creamy. All right, now I went ahead and put that crust that we made earlier in the oven at 350 degrees for 8 minutes, okay? Just to make sure everything holds together. And I've shown you right there a guava paste that's melted down, and that's the consistency it needs to be in. I'm using a funnel to put it into that plastic condiment bottle right there. I use a funnel to put it in there. So I'm going to put our filling into the crust. You see? We bake that crust and it's nice and all set. So you want to make sure after you get it out the oven, you let it cool down. As you're mixing your filling, it should cool down. So what I do is I pour my filling into that pan, and I like to start in the center. That way I just spread out the filling as opposed to starting on the outside and pulling it in, where I find that it leaves your cheesecake with a kind of concave, top. So I like to start in the center and fill it out, push it out towards the edges of the springform pan, just like I'm doing here. I kind of pat it lightly. See that? And you can use 2 8-ounce packages of cream cheese to do this, but I find that 3 8-ounce packages gives you a more volume, more height in your cheesecake, which is what we're looking for. And I have a very eager helper there. That's my little son's hands. He's my sous chef. He always joins me in the kitchen asking me questions. All right, now we're going to start dotting our cheesecake filling with that guava paste that's been melted down. And what I'm doing is just making little circles on the surface of the filling, and then you can use the dull edge of a butter knife, or you can use a skewer, which is what I did, to just connect those dots and shape them into little hearts. Now the idea for making this cheesecake look the way it did came to me in a dream, which is really weird, but I just had to make it. I thought if I could dream it up, it's gotta be good. So I went ahead and woke up the next day and I put this together. And I'm so happy I did, because not only did it look good, it tasted so good. All right. Now, if you don't have guava paste in your area, you can look for pure guava juice or guava pulp and just put it on the stove with a half a cup of water and make sure you reduce it. That means let it cook on medium heat until it's nice and thick to have the consistency of the guava paste that I've used here. So I'm using that wooden skewer to just drag the hearts. You see that? And then you want to clean it. Each time you finish dragging the hearts, you want to clean that skewer just to make sure your hearts are nice and clean. There's no white running through it. And I clean it again. So I'm going to keep doing this to all those dotted lines. And then once I'm done, I'm going to take a look at it and see if we need to add any more. And then we're going to add some more if we need to. But for now, you just keep dragging it, and look at that. It's so pretty. I actually wanted it, just based on the looks, I could have eaten it the way it was right now. But you got to cook it. There's raw eggs in there. Okay. And I decided to add a few more dots up there. A few more hearts. Doesn't hurt anything. It's a Valentine's Day after all. Now, don't be restricted to just cooking this on Valentine's Day. You can cook it any other time, and you can make any other designs you want. You can do a marble effect, just random swirls here and there. It doesn't have to be hearts. I just did this in line with the upcoming Valentine's Day celebrations. All right. Now you can also use that edge of the knife, the dull edge of the butter knife, to do the same thing I just did there. So we're going to pop this into the oven, and you want to make sure that you let the cheesecake cool down in the oven for 1 hour after you finish baking, or you're going to get a crack like I did there. Okay. Remember, we're using steam to cook it and not water. Well, I'm so glad you joined me this time. Join me next time as I take your taste buds on another culinary safari and enjoy that picture of the finished cheesecake. Yeah, 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 yeah.